Hello, everyone, and welcome back to all of you joining us again. We are the VML, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and GLHF. We're a 10-week-long Magic the Gathering Arena League, showcasing the talents of amazing people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. My name is Nicole Callahan, and joining you here once again, also known as Lady of the Crease. And pleased as punch to be joined tonight by the lovely Misha. Misha, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nicole. How are you doing?
I am, like life is great. Thanksgiving was good. Life is pretty good. Okay. No complaints here. Happy to have you on the production team here at VML. We have had some new and exciting additions. So that's been super exciting. Glad to have you on the team. And speaking of new and exciting additions, Season 8, we have just turned things upside down. We doubled our size as a league. We have 128 players this season. It's our biggest ever season. Divided those players up into 16 divisions. We're playing round robin for the first 7 weeks, this being week number 4, before we cut to a playoff of the top 32. It's going to be a clean cut this season. And this is a path to regional championships, pro tours. We have VML champs at the end of the year. Really exciting stuff going on. I can't wait. I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I'm so glad that you are too.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here, and it's been a great ride so far. And we're not even at the halfway part yet. Halfway before we get to the finals, but yeah, we just got a long way to go.
We definitely do. Oh, and by the way, I love your VML swag. If you want your own VML swag, go to mtgproshop.com/VML. Check it out. Get some. It's so cool. Love it. Love the logos. But yes, we have a lot of it. Like you said, there's a lot of exciting stuff. We're not quite, we're about halfway-ish. This is like the halfway point. It's really like 3.5 weeks, and we're on week 4. So we'll say we're at the halfway point right now. But there's new cards on the scene this week. The Brothers War, excuse me, has launched, and so Mishra and Urza and all of their antics have been unleashed onto Standard. So mix things up this week. New decks, new deck choices, maybe some old decks and old choices as well. Let's take a look at our metagame breakdown. Looking here, and on initial glance, it looks like maybe not much has changed. There's a lot of Grixis mid-range, a lot of Esper mid-range, as there has been in the past. Grixis Sacrifice, which kind of, it's a little different than the mid-range decks. We've got Rakdos mid-range, so it looks like mid-range still kind of running things here in Standard. And then Is It Tempo kind of sneaking in there as our 5th most played deck of the week. What are your thoughts on this breakdown? New Standard, did you expect to see a little more or a little less sort of variance here, or what are your thoughts?
So I expected to see a lot of Grixis. What I'm surprised to see is not as much as Azorious. I was expecting Azorious aggro, especially Azorious soldiers, to be a lot more popular. I mean, it's definitely the next. I think that's number 6 in line. But I was expecting that to be, 3, 4 maybe. I'm not surprised that Esper is still hanging on to one of those top seats because Esper was one of the stronger decks going into this week, so it makes sense that it would stay strong. And plus, people are still learning these cards. I'm still learning these cards. So there's a lot to still figure out. The meta's new. The meta's still evolving. So I'm not surprised about Grixis. I'm not surprised about Esper. In the coming weeks, I think Azorius might pick up a little bit more. And I know I have some friends that are playing that have even, been rolling around, maybe playing some mono red, some aggro, because lately aggro hasn't been very strong. So it'd be nice to see a little bit of a mix up, being it more aggro, maybe a little bit more control. But we'll see. We've got a few more weeks to go, and we'll see how those bro cards shake down.
Yes, and we'll see what our competitors this week have chosen to bring in the fact of like old players like Shieldred or Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and if anybody here has kind of gone towards those new Urza Meld Planeswalker cards, or like you said, the Azorius soldier cards and things like that. So let's take a look here at our first matchup. We're going to be heading to division number 13 and taking a look at Orzhov Clerics. This is Pseudoku. They are in division number 13. And honestly, it looks like a lot of the same old players, but there are a couple of exciting cards in here. Any thoughts on this deck list looking at it now, Misha?
Oh, the Clerics deck. This is one that hasn't been as common, but I mean, you see a lot of big contenders. You see the Wandering Emperor, you see those pieces of removals or target removal. So those are just big, just getting threats off the board early game and then trying to get that mid range send. And, that's typically what you're trying to get with these mid-range decks. I mean, that's the goal, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays up against our next competitor.
Yeah, let's take a look at the flip side. We will have uh, Filipa on Grixis Sacrifice. Now, this is one of the more popular decks. We see Onicle Anvils. I see Sahili in there. Filipa saying that she edited it for some spice, and I kind of like the spice. It's sort of fun. Any thoughts on any standouts that you see here?
Yeah, that's the Healy. That's the big one. That's gonna, switch things up a little bit. It's card draw. You have the Bank Buster, but I mean it does cost too. If you can get the Sahili out and just uptick and get that card, that's amazing card advantage. Which I know that can be one of the more difficult things in these Rakdos decks is that you're not getting as many cards. So that plus Shieldred, if you can get that going off and getting some life gain, this can really, kind of take over really quick.
Yes, and a combo that we've seen from a lot of the sacrifice decks this week. Very hyped about card from the Brothers War, third path iconoclast. It's they said, the better young pyromancer rip. So third path iconoclast looking great in a deck like this, making 1/1 artifacts great to sacrifice to things like the Anvil or Voltage Surge, which will be a great card in this matchup, should be a great card in this matchup. So it'll be interesting to see how that combo works out. And let's take a look at our matchup here. So we have Sudoku on Orzhov Clerics versus Filipa on Grixis Sacrifice. And we'll be watching from Sudoku's side. That is our Orzhov Clerics deck. And in we go. So it looks like Sudoku is on the draw here, playing out a Luminarch Aspirant. Low curve is what this deck is all about. Any thoughts on this opener here?
Well, Sudoku snap kept that so quickly, and as you see, you have a turn 1 cleric coming out. It's a turn 2 cleric coming out, pumping your turn 1 cleric. So they're already off to a great start. But now we have Filipa with an anvil, which, if they can get that anvil going, that'll be great for them. But we'll see if it's fast enough to keep up with Sudoku's start.
Yes. Oh, Voice of the Blessed, a card that can definitely get out of control very quickly was the draw here, but only 2 lands for Sudoku. So whether or not they need that third land, it may or may not because it is such a low curve deck, but being able to double spell would probably be very nice here. We see 3 tap lands on the side of Filipa, so sort of a different problem on Filipa's side, a little slower of a start.
Yeah, Philippa, getting those lands, getting all the mana that she needs, but it is slower. But then again, Sudoku did only just get their third land, so we see the Voice of the Blessed coming out.
Yes. Voice of the Blessed does come down onto the battlefield. Double triggers on those Lunarch veterans, and they're going to get into the red zone. That Voice of the Blessed already a 5/5.
Yeah, that was smart of Sudoku to just push those veterans in because Philippa's not going to block. I think at this point she probably needs the treasure or just a blocker with that 2/2, and that 1/1 is important for the anvil. So no reason to really block, but that is a lot of damage pushing through onto Philippa.
Okay, and it looks like Sudoku's hand is rolled up here. Traveling Minister, a Phyrexian missionary in order to get something back from the graveyard, should they feel it necessary. A removal spell, an Infernal Grasp, and an Anointed Peacekeeper to tax some of the other cards in Philippa's hand. We see a second Onicle Anvil, though, hit the side of Filipa here. Is that going to be enough to kind of catch up and maybe get back into this?
Um, I'm not sure because that is great. Philippa just got 2 more of those little artifact creatures, but with that 5/5 out there, it's going to be hard because Philippa's going to either be chumping and losing some of those blockers, and that Voice of the Blessed just continues to grow. And once it gets enough counters, I think it gets flying. Is that correct?
Yes, it it
Yeah.
it, it gets a lot of things. So as long as it has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Flying and Vigilance. And if it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters, it has Indestructible.
That's
So
correct. Yeah,
it
so
has a lot of stuff.
yeah, right here, I think, is where we're gonna see, I think Sudoku is gonna end up taking this away just because Philippa doesn't have any way to handle a flyer, especially one of that magnitude right now.
Yes, unfortunately, that blood tithe harvester cannot make enough bloods to take care of that voice of the blessed.
Yeah, right now it's definitely looking like that spirit's gonna overtake a vampire.
It's definitely a tough spot for Philippa here, flipping that reflection of Kiki Jiki, but Sudoku's at a very healthy 23 life. Philippa only at 5, staring down lethal. We'll see digging with the Misha's research desk here, getting some tokens off of those unequal anvil triggers, but
Yeah, with only 1 mana available, a cut down wouldn't even be able to touch that Voice of the Blessed. It's too high of a power and toughness, so I don't think there's much Philippa can do right now. The only thing I can think of is if she were to attack with her goblin, make a treasure, and then have a 2 CMC or potentially 3 CMC, but we only have 1 card in hand that we don't know, so
there is one eaten alive in Philippa's deck. So that's the sorcery that exiles a target creature or planeswalker uh, for a single black. Or as an additional cost, you can sacrifice a creature or pay 3 in a black. That's
well, that would
so
have been the needed card.
that would the top deck, but I'm guessing from the delay that it would have happened already if that was the case for on Philippa's
Mhm.
side.
Yeah, because even if Philippa were to tap that other Oni cult and sacrifice another, artifact, I just don't think I mean, 7 is still lethal, and now it's just growing, so I think this one's gonna go to Sudoku. I believe we'll be going to a game 2.
Yes, very shortly as this voice of the blessed getting into the red zone, Philippa at 6 life, and not going to let it happen. Just going to concede right before damage resolves. So let's move on to sideboards here. We'll watch again. We're watching from the side of Sudoku, our Orzhov Clerics player, and it doesn't look like I don't believe that Sudoku has any. Oh, I'm sorry. They have no. I don't think they have any new cards from the Brothers War. It looks like they are all about. They could have just submitted this deck last week.
I think that actually was the case.
Oh,
If I remember correctly, I think Sudoku did forgot to resubmit and, ended up going with their deck from last week, but right now, I mean, it seems to be working out for them.
yeah, listen, sometimes it works. As we see a couple of copies of Duress coming in here, wanting to leave Wandering Emperor. Like the idea of Duresses maybe nabbing an early anvil. And we see another 2-lander Snapkeep from our Orzhov Clerics player. They kept that one pretty quick. Sudoku again. This time it's a little heavier though. It's not all the 1-drops and 2-drops from game number 1. Obviously, there's the 3rd land, but any thoughts on this hand as opposed to the last game?
This hand definitely looks a little bit slower, but then again, Sudoku did get that turn 1, turn 2, pumping your turn 1, gaining life. But Philippa does have an answer this time. That Voltage Surge will take out the what is that? The Phyrexian. It'll take out the that 2/2 priest. But
We'll
now we
see
have Anointed Peacekeeper coming down.
Anointed Peacekeeper, a card that we've seen played a bit more as time goes on, taking care of things like Wandering Emperor. But we'll see Sheoldred be the named card here. Definitely a scary one. So, but Voltage Surge is going to take care of that quickly as Research Desk will be sacrificed to it.
Yeah,
Veteran getting in for 1.
that looks like a couple of good draws for Philippa. I'm not sure if she sideboarded in more removal pieces, but that was very lucky to be able to get those off. But then again, Sudoku comes back and takes out the Sholdred.
See a very a timely stop in the upkeep there, even though Arena's like mostly fix that to take care of Shieldred from the side of Philippa. And a 5th land on the side of Philippa, going to dig for some action here with Misha's research desk. Taking a little look at the top 2, I see a land and a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Now, they have until she has until the end of her next turn, I believe, to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, until the end of her next turn. So she has plenty of time to do that. So it'll just be an Onicle Anvil out onto the battlefield by its lonesome at the moment. And there's a Voice of the Blessed, the MVP from game number 1, coming down onto the battlefield. Traveling Minister gonna pump up the Lunarch Veteran and pump up the Voice of the Blessed at the same time.
Yeah,
And that veteran's getting in for 2.
That minister did some work there. That voice is already growing. 2 counters and the turn it's played. That's so much value.
Yes, definitely a lot of value. Great synergy here from the side of Pseudoku as we see Filipa playing her 6th land. So that's got to hurt a little bit. A little bit flooded as we see only 2 cards left in hand on the side of Filipa and no real board presence. Voltage Shards sacking the Onicle Anvil. That is, I don't know what to call that, like a desperate play, but that's tough when the sacrifice deck has to get rid of their sacrifice alpha or outlet in swords to stay in the game.
Yeah, I agree, but then again, the Voice of the Blessed is what ended up taking Filipa out in that first game. So it seemed like getting rid of that Voice of the Blessed when Filipa still could was the move to make. And I believe that was a Sholdred.
Yes, it was a Shieldred returned with the Takenuma Abandoned Mire, and that will be played. But we all know that Pseudoku has a second Infernal Grasp in hand to take care of that one. So Filipa left with 1 card in hand at 13 life, and Pseudoku is not slowing down. We're going to see what that last card is. It is Sulphurous Springs. So taking a look at the graveyard, thinking about, hey, what should I name here? Honestly, because Filipa has so many lands at the moment, having 6 lands, it's, to make something a little more expensive, Filipa will play whatever she can at this point, but Onicle Anvil will be the name as we see Wandering Emperor pumping up the Lunarch Veteran, getting in for 4, Filipa down to 9, and another Voice of the Blessed. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, I believe this is going to be really close to it. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, one HP in a dream.
Yes. A chip and a chair on the side of Filipa. But, and speaking of that, going to do a little bit of digging with this Mistress Research Desk. I'm not sure at this point what Filipa can find.
Yeah, I don't think that she's running any board wipes, so yeah, that will be game.
Yeah, no burn down the houses or anything like that. So, like that, we're going to have our first result of week number 4. We have Pseudoku on Orzhov Clerics taking the match down over Filipa on Grixis Sacrifice, 2-0. So good games to both of our players, but what a commanding performance by Orzhov Clerics. Who needs the Brothers War, right?
Right, yeah. When you've got good removal, you've got life gain, and you're fast. Like, I was already saying earlier that I was waiting to see more aggro decks, and honestly, Orzhov Clerics, that was a pretty aggressive deck.
Yeah, after Meat Hook Massacre was banned, a lot of people were expecting aggro would kind of break out onto the scene, but cards like Shieldred and Fable the Mirror Breaker kind of gum up the battlefield. You have a 4 or 5 Death Toucher and a 3-mana card that makes 2 2/2s. It's a little bit harder to get those aggro decks out there, but I don't know. Voice of the Blessed certainly impressed us that match. And so let's head on to our second match of the evening. In this one, we'll be heading to division number 14. Taking a look at May. She's bringing Grixis Midrange. Now, this is a bit different than our Grixis sacrifice deck that we just saw in the hands of Filipa. Did you want to take us on a tour through this Grixis Midrange deck? Some differences and similarities?
So we have some differences, we have some similarities. Obviously, Fable of the Mirror Breaker is really popular, so you're going to see that. You're going to see the Blood Tithe Harvester. But some of the differences here, Corpse Appraiser. I haven't seen Corpse Appraiser played in really any deck, so this is exciting to see that. The Cut Down is a little risky because if a creature starts growing and gets out of range, it's kind of a dead card in your hand. So it's a great card, but it's a risky card. So those are really fun to see. I also like the Make Disappears. That is a really great counterspell, and that it has casualty, but when you're sacrificing anyways, what's another 1/1 to the casualty?
Yeah, and honestly, Onicle Anvils is when you sacrifice something. So it doesn't matter if you're sacking it to the anvil itself or whatever. If you're just sacrifice a thing, you get a little value out of that. And I just want to point out really quick that one of the questions that we asked our players this week was, which brother would you side with for the war? And May says they are on hashtag Team Squee, and I can't say that I could possibly agree any more than I do, because I was hoping Squee would be an option.
Sometimes
So
you just need that write-in candidate.
right? And I would write in squee over and over again. I'm about it. So
Yes, that was a
so
perfect answer.
it truly was. So let's take a look at who May will be playing against tonight, and that is Brooke. Brooke is playing Grixis Sacrifice. So very similar to the deck that we just saw. Again, with Third Path Iconoclast, a card that we unfortunately for Filipa did not get to see shine in our first match. Maybe we'll get to see it this time around. I see a little more of the cut downs and main deck removal here from Brooke. Is there anything that stands out to you here on this list, or does it kind of look like a stock Grixis sack list to you?
This one looks a little bit more standard from what I've seen. You have the voltage surges, you have the cut downs. Yeah, this one tends to be a little bit more standard. I think that is that an Eaten Alive in there as well?
There is. It looks like there is one again.
Yeah.
So very similar to the last, where there
Yes,
was
so I
the
would say
one
this
up.
is more on the meta side, so it's gonna be interesting to see this meta Grixis versus kind of the non-meta Grixis go head to head in this game.
Yeah, so we have sort of it's a Grixis mirror. They're doing two different things, but it's a Grixis mirror, right?
Yeah,
They're both playing
exactly.
Grixis. So let's see which Grixis does it better. Will it be Grixis Sacrifice or Grixis Midrange? Let's head over to our match right now. Again, now we're watching from the side of May on Grixis Midrange, and on top we have Brooke on Grixis Anvil.
Oh, this is an
So
interesting hand with only one with only 1 mana. I think that was a definite mulligan. Now the question is what do we put back? Uh, we have 2 tap lands and then 1 untapped land. I'm thinking that it might be 1 mirror. Yeah, that was it.
took the words right out of your mouth. It's like, yes, that one.
Yeah, because without any creatures. Oh, I must have missed it. I did not realize that was a
Oh wow,
second mulligan.
that was to 5. Although a 1, 2, 3 curve ish sort of here, even though I guess you're not playing cut down on 1 or go for the throat on 2, but
Yeah.
cheap spells.
Oh,
That's what we want to
the
say.
sad face.
Aw.
Well, that is a good start for Brooke, getting that Blood Tithe Harvester out that early, and then having a Anvil coming up probably next. That's going to be a hard start to get past for May.
Yes,
But May does have that cut down, and right now that Blood Tithe Harvester can get cut down.
yes, when we say Brooke has a pretty solid hand. 2 more lands in hand, an Onical Anvil, a Go for the Throat and a removal spell, another threat and a second Blood Type Harvester, and Fable and Mirror Breaker, which is just the full package of
Mm.
threats, card advantage, and everything. So
Yeah, Brooke definitely has a stacked hand, and we see May here trying to decide if they're going to cut down anything. At this point, I would think the Blood Tithe Harvester would be the bigger. Oh, okay. Then again, May doesn't know that Brooke has more lands in hand, so preventing
yeah,
that treasure generation.
a part of it could also be Brooke having the access to additional artifacts, either additional mana or additional artifacts. May perhaps just wants to cut any sort of access to any sort of resources that Brooke could have for free. So Blood Tithe Harvester's already done its damage. It's on the battlefield. It's going to attack, but we'll see. Go for the throat. So nobody wants any goblins on this battlefield. What happened to Team Squee?
I guess now they're anti-team Kiki Jiki.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. So we'll see if May decides to discard anything off of this Fable and Mirror Breaker. Not having a 4th land, having another Fable and Mirror Breaker, an Urtai, a Corpse Appraiser, and a Go for the Throat. They're fine cards. Maybe a couple of them a little bit slow. Corpse Appraiser at least perhaps will replace itself. Go for the Throat is an answer to a Shieldred that is looming in Brooke's hand. But
Yeah, at this point, this is a difficult decision, and I understand why May's taking a second because I'm taking a second. It looks like just the Corpse Appraiser, and May luckily does get that 4th land. So they can play the Urtai. They can. I don't see the point in getting the second Fable out currently. I think having a creature on board just to potentially hold some damage back might be a better move at this point.
We'll see what May decides to do here. An Urtai can remove and block the Blood Tithe Harvesters, so it can kill one and block the other if Brooke gets in the red zone with both, which I can't see why Brooke would not do that, and it looks like it will. So
Yeah, having both of those blood tithe harvesters is nice because otherwise you can just sack one, remove a threat, and then keep pushing damage. So having them tapped removes that ability. So that's now's the time.
yes, we'll see. It looks like gonna hold strong on the side of May, wanting to see what's gonna come down after this. Sahili. So, but that will be no thank you to Urtai taking care of that. So Brooke allowed to draw a card off of the Urtai, and it will be an Ani Cult Anvil, flipping the first Fable of the Mirror Breaker to Reflection of Kiki Jiki and playing the second one, and then Go for the Throat will take care of the reflection on Brooke's side. So a little back and forth here.
Yeah, a little give, a little take. So this has been good so far. Having the anvil is going to be kind of nasty. I'm interested why Brooke didn't play the anvil. Well, that explains it. They wanted
Yeah.
to get the Shouldred out first, and then they'll start making some fodder next turn.
Yeah, like you had said earlier, those Blood Tithe Harvesters doing some work. May to 8 down to 6 off the Shieldred trigger, going to loot away one of the lands, hoping to find an answer because Shieldred makes you pay for your Fable of the Mirror Breaker loots. That's for sure.
Yeah. Ooh, this is not looking good for May currently because with that anvil, and then if Brooke were to attack, the Shouldred obviously can't come through because that's lethal. The Blood Tithe Harvester would trade off with either creature, and then you'd be chumping Shouldred, and then you have to be worried that you're just going to die to shoulder triggers. So, yeah.
And that's looking like what's going to happen as May will scoop them up here in game number 1. So Brooke takes down game 1 on Grixis Sacrifice against May on the Grixis mid-range. And we're going to take a look here at sideboards. So taking a look, going through, we see, thinking about taking out Liliana of the Veil. Doesn't seem very good against a deck that would like to sacrifice their things. Uh, are there any cards that really jump out to you here that maybe should come in? Do we want like soul
Yeah.
transfers
I was
or
just about to say the duresses, removing those
the
threats
rest?
before they can arrive. That's what you're going to be looking for here. Um, There's not really any graveyard stuff for the hearse to be amazing. The burn down the house, I could see another one of those coming in. Is there one in there already? Because that will handle a shoulder. It'll handle any of the fodder that might be made from the Oni cult.
So we see Soren the Mirthless, wondering if those lifelink vampires, gaining just a little bit of life, like a little cushion in the air, could be enough to kind of help May cross the finish line before dying to Onicolt Anvil or Shieldred triggers.
Yeah.
And then we're taking a look at Brooke's side, quickly bringing in those duresses this time around, and also bringing in the Lilianas, though.
Yeah, Brooke is taking a slightly different approach, going for obviously duress to get the threats out of the way, but the discard that is a that is a choice that May decided against, but we'll see if it works out for Brooke on the discard.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of what comes out. It looks like shaving the third cut down, so no cut downs in the main anymore. Going to take out a lot of removal, actually, is what it looks like. And some blood tithe
Oh,
harvesters.
oh, I'm interested to see those Blood Tithe Harvesters coming out since they did so much work in game one.
And experimental synthesizer also being cut. Perhaps a question of being on the play or on the draw. That synthesizer much better on the play than it is on the draw, as you almost don't really want to play it on turn 1. So
Yeah.
we'll see Sahili getting a shave as well. And let's go. Players are ready. Let's head into game number 2 here. Our Grixis midrange against Grixis Sacrifice. We are on the side of Grixis midrange in the hands of May, looking up top at Brooke on Grixis Sacrifice. Any thoughts on this opening hand?
All right, for May, that is a very land heavy opener. Brooke has a lot of lands as well, but it's a bit faster. But like you see, May had the counter spell, so no action just yet. This will be a slightly slower start for these two competitors.
Yes. We'll see. May not playing Corpse Appraiser there. Want to get some value off of it. Could be one of the good things or bad things about this. So holding up perhaps maybe to cycle away one of those Xander's lounges.
Yeah, that does look like what's going to happen. And we get a second Corpse Appraiser. But first we have Shelly coming down.
Shieldred going to hit the battlefield. We see the Go for the Throat in Brooke's hand, as well as an Abrade and an Omnixilus, the Adversary, a card that everybody was afraid of once it had first gotten printed. Everybody said this card's going to ruin Standard, and we just haven't seen it, even with the overwhelming amount of Grixis and Rakdos decks. Just a card that just kind of fell short.
Yeah, with the Omnixilus is a great card. The casualty is even better, but you do have to have something to casualty, and you have to be prepared for if your opponent has the removal for it. So it can be difficult to get it going, but once it's going, it can be very nasty.
I guess in a deck like Grixis Sacrifice, having all those 1/1 fodders seems pretty great. We see Corpse Appraiser finally coming down and getting that value. Looking at the top three here, we have Blood Tithe Harvester, Abrade, and Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Any thoughts on which of those three spells we want to see in?
Well, I would have given you my thoughts, but there's already. Yeah, I believe the Abrade taking out the Onicole Anvil is the right choice. They can sack it in response, but I mean, you're not going to have that recurring problem now.
Yes, as we see, I believe that. Oh no, we see Liliana of the Veil, sorry, coming down on the side of Brooke. And Liliana minusing to take care of that Corpse Appraiser. So that 1/1 free to attack. May down to 17. Tenacious Underdog is the draw on the side of May. So being able to double spell here might be a bit of a big deal. We see Corpse Appraiser eating Corpse Appraiser. Ooh, and revealing 2 lands and a Blood Tithe Harvester.
At this point, it's definitely the Blood Tithe Harvester. Like, May just has a lot of lands. Granted, the Takenuma can get some things back, potentially, but when you have that many lands, you're not looking for more ramp at that point. You're trying to get some action. So, yeah, keeping the Blood Tithe Harvester was the right choice.
Yeah, we see Blood Tithe Harvester coming down. So being able to threaten Liliana and guard from any more 1/1 attacks here on the battlefield, even around any removal that Brooke might have right here, like this Abrade to take care of the Blood Tithe Harvester over the Corpse Appraiser. We'll see Liliana ticking up. And it's a question of what to get rid of here. Xander's Lounge does cycle. We'll dig a little deeper. And is there anything that May wants to get back from their graveyard with the Takenuma?
Right now, I don't think there is. Honestly, discarding that Tenacious Underdog and being able to blitz it does not seem like the worst opinion. It draws you a card, and it's something that you can pressure the Liliana.
And it looks like that's what May is considering at this moment. It's definitely a big decision to make, but it looks like ultimately Takenuma will hit the bin. Going to hold on to the Tenacious Underdog for now and see what happens. And here comes Ob.
Yep, getting that casualty, double Omnixilus. That's you can only handle so many planeswalkers, and when you're making a 1/1 blocker, those 3 planeswalkers are going to stay out for a minute.
Yes, that is definitely quite the battlefield that Brooke is building up there. And we see a Misha's research desk, the option out of the graveyard as well. A cut down was the draw here. Can kind of clear the path here for the Corpse Appraiser to get in and at least take care of one of these Omnixilus.
Yeah, definitely
Ooh.
taking out an Omnixilus because Liliana currently. Oh,
I like this.
that
This
is
is aggressive.
yeah. The surprise blitz is always what gets them.
Yeah, so we see Tenacious Underdog being blitzed just and playing the cycle land onto the battlefield tapped. drawing a swamp off the Tenacious Underdog Blitz trigger. So able to blitz it again after this, but that was definitely a, I want to get this game done with.
Yeah, and it's nice that May did get that swamp because now you're not taking the damage from the Obnixilis on the discard.
That's
So
right.
that's great. And now there's 2 targets. It seems like Brooke is playing Super Friends over there with all the planeswalkers.
Right. We see Saheeli coming down. Tenacious Underdog still in the graveyard, but it's not free.
Yeah, it is a
Tenacious
2 life each time you blitz it.
Yes. There's another cut down. Would be able to take care of one of these 1/1s. And now we see both players kind of low on resources here. Brooke still with the Xander's Lounge in hand and the Mishra's Research Desk in the graveyard. We see May's hand of cut down and then a Tenacious Underdog in the graveyard. Brooke perhaps a little bit ahead on the battlefield here, but Corpse Appraiser and Tenacious Underdog, big threats. What are your thoughts here on like kind of advantage wise? Like who has the battlefield here? Who has the
So right now, I agree with what May is doing. Taking out one of those, is that a Thopter? One of those flyers, so that you can take out the Saheeli and prevent Brooke from continuing to draw. That's going to be a big piece right here. It does take May down because of having to spin to get the card and blitz, but if May can end up taking out these planeswalkers, they might have a chance to stabilize and get back in the game.
Yeah, and we'll see. Ob ticking up again, but as earlier, May just a land in hand. So happy to discard that and maintain a higher life total, staying at 9. This Mishra's Research Desk revealing a land and a Blood Tithe Harvester. So Brooke happy to play that out very quickly. So a good blocker for this Corpse Appraiser, and we'll see go for the throat. Another timely removal spell on the side of May.
Yeah, that is great news for May. That takes out the Blood Tithe Harvester. If they decide to blitz again, they can take out that Obnixilis. They just have to be really careful because they are at a low life total. So it's real easy just to, lose based off of, some decisions, some blitzing. And, when you're that low, there's a lot of things that can happen.
And we see a blood activation to draw a Blood Tithe Harvester, discarding land in Brooke's hand. But a very timely attack on that Obnixilis, since it was just at 3 loyalty. So just able to kill that. And yet another Planeswalker on the side of Brooke, really controlling this game.
Yeah, that Liliana taking out that Corpse Appraiser and then playing another creature. This is not looking too strong for May. Having that Xander's Land is nice because you can cycle it and look for another answer, but it's getting a little risky if
Yes.
you
We'll
want to
see.
try to blitz out the harvest or the underdog again.
Blood Tithe Harvester does come down here, unable to hold on to the land as well because of the Liliana Plus that is looming. So not going to be able to hold on to anything to loot with the blood. We'll see Liliana Plus, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, an excellent draw on the side of Brooke. We'll see, thinking about what to do here. How aggressive does Brooke want to get? May is at 6 life.
I agree. At this point, it's time to just push. You have all of these resources. You have 23 life. Just get in there, push, and just, you know, May is limited with blitzing that Tenacious Underdog. And at this point, there's so few cards in hand that even trying to take out the Liliana is not going to, well, I mean, we'll see.
Yes. Honestly, being able to draw off the Tenacious Underdog, kind of saying like pay 2 life, draw a card, feels pretty good. Invoke Despair is an interesting one.
I think it might be a little too late for the Invoke Despair because Brooke does have, a creature to sacrifice, but they're going to be getting their Fable flipped. And so if they just sack the Fable when it flips, what's a couple life loss due to not sacking a Planeswalker? Oh, wait. This is happening before the flip.
Oh,
I'm
we
sorry.
see
My
that.
mistake.
Yeah. No, that's fine. We see Invoke Despair and the timely draw of a Blood Tithe Harvester. So able to very efficiently block that third pass Iconoclast. But Brooke does have a draw off of this blood. And then another draw off of this Mission's Research desk, and Iconoclast we can see finally in action, starting to do a little work here, making a 1/1 off of that Mission's Research desk and seeing that it is land, the choices. So not the best, but it'll get you another go on the research desk itself if Brooke decides to play it here.
Yeah, because May unfortunately can no longer blitz that tenacious underdog. That is lethal damage. And yeah, they do have the Reckoner Bankbuster, and that might be able to draw them into an answer, but right now, Brooke is definitely looking stronger and does have the draw resources.
Yes, we'll see research desk being unearthed on back onto the battlefield. Gonna take another little licky loo here at the top two.
Those are some good options. Either
Yeah,
one will
that's pretty
yeah.
nice. It's do you want the thing that drains for 2 every time your opponent draws, or you want a thing that drains for 1? So it's quite a choice here.
Yeah. Two good answers. We'll see we'll see. It looks like the Oni Colt was the choice.
Yes, a solid choice. Unable to play it this turn though. Thinking about getting in with Third Path Iconoclast, saying, you know what, there's no reason for me to get in here. So May thinking about what is my way out here, would be able to draw off Rankin Bankbuster, but that would also limit what they could play afterwards, as that would take up 4 mana. So just going to loot blood away that Rankin Bankbuster and draw a swamp. That's quickly going to get looted away by the second blood and another Invoke Despair.
Hmm. At this point, having that 1/1 to sacrifice
Yes.
is not the strongest. But now playing it, oh, that
Oops.
yeah, May got rid of their blood token. Oh, that
Un-
was unfortunate.
Unfortunately, didn't kill the Iconoclast, but while they still had the blood, the only as a sorcery thing, you get mixed up and things like that. But very well played from both of our players. Besides, we see Brooke take it down on Grixis Sacrifice, 2-0 on May on Grixis Midrange. So, well, quite a matchup. So,
Yeah, that was really interesting to see the Saheeli come into play. And like I said, that card draw, that was just so strong. Getting those Thopters, getting the cards, just honestly, just having all those Planeswalkers was kind of ridiculous, but amazing.
yeah, I mean, Grixis Midrange, Grixis Sacrifice. Nobody said Grixis Super Friends. I didn't see that on the list here.
New
But
deck name for next week, maybe.
right. Yes. Speaking of next, we have our next matchup coming up. This time we'll move into division number 16. So a 16 out of 16 division. We take a look at a personal favorite deck of mine, Jodah Humans. We are all about these rainbow domain, legendary, if I would, decks here. I love it. This is fantastic. I'm all about Jodah the Unifier, and I know Coral said that they were very excited to get this new Hajar Loyal Bodyguard in the Brothers War. What are your thoughts on this new 2-drop and how it affects this archetype?
No, I should have looked up Hajar.
Oh, no, it's that's
Oh, yeah, this Hajar is the one that makes your legendary creatures indestructible. That's amazing for Jodah. That's like a dream. So, yeah, that should make for some interesting combats. That should make for some interesting blocks if you are on an interesting, situation where you might be facing down lethal, but you can just pop that and then maybe do something on the crackback. This Hajar will make for some interesting plays, I'm sure.
Oh, I love it. And one of my favorite things is that Jodah has it pretty much gives like all of your legendary creatures have Cascade, and it being a 2-drop and being cascaded into just feels really good. So I love it. I love this deck. I think it's a lot of fun besides, and I'm very excited to see this one in action. So hopefully Hopefully we'll get to see some Jodah action. But from the other side, we see Emily here with Azorious control. So we're gonna see some like permission asking here as well. We see make disappears and essence scatters. Like honestly, when you're playing a whole bunch of 5 drops and 4 drops, I feel like Azorius control might be somewhat like your worst nightmare. Any thoughts about this matchup going in Azorius control versus a 5 color Jodah human legendary deck?
Yeah, so like you said, when you're looking at those like 4 drops, 5 drops, this is a really rough matchup. But on the flip side, the Joda deck does have a lot of really strong 2 drops. It also has Thalia in it. It has Catilda. So those are going to make it harder to cast some of these counter spells when they cost 1 extra, or there's just, so much ramp. Because if I'm looking in here, is there, yeah, there's make disappears. So all you have to do is pay 2, and Catilda allows you to pay that extra, tax. So it'll be an interesting matchup just because of the intricacies of, are they going to be able to pay the man? Are they going to have these humans out? So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see this game.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if Azorius control draws their counter spells or their card draw, and you know how if the 5 color Jodah deck is going to draw the lower part of their curve or one of their 4 Thalia Guardian of Thraben. So let's take a look. We'll head over to our third matchup here. Again, we have Emily Anders on Azorius control versus Coral on Jodah humans. We'll be watching from the side of Coral, and that's quite a hand to start.
Yeah, that is pretty strong. Getting that Thalia on. Yeah, are they going to be able to play it on turn 2? They're playing their Jet Mirrors.
They will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a Plaza of Heroes peeking out of the hand there. So we'll see that come down and could not windmill slam that Thalia onto the battlefield any faster.
That is exactly what Coral is wanting here. She wants to get that Thalia. She wants to have those taxes.
Yes.
Every other time I would not be in favor of taxes except right here, right now.
And that's what we look like we're doing here. Thinking about it before casting this Adeline, what can Emily respond with just the 2 mana open on Thalia? And not going to do anything but Thalia getting into the red zone and Adeline making a 1/1, doing what it does best and starting to go wide already as we see a land and a pass of the turn from Emily's side. And Coral
Yeah.
not shy.
Yeah, this looking like mono white aggro right here.
Yes, as we see, Iganjo is going to be channeled to take care of that ally, but not before it makes a 1/1. So I had to wait till it was attacking, so the trigger already happened, and there is Hajar. So onto
Yeah.
the battlefield.
Yeah, those Thalia taxes are rough against this. Getting Thalia on turn 2 is so strong. And that
Ooh,
an instant concede. Okay.
yeah. I mean, there was a second copy in Thalia's hand. I mean, I guess we knew about that, even though Emily may not have, but an overwhelming battlefield there on the side of Coral. That was a very commanding, quick game. Like you said, we just saw a lot of those 2 drops, the little, just take over the game so quickly.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this Joda deck is that it does rely on a lot of 2 drops. As you can see, there was the Thalia, Dinnick, Hajar, Catilda, all 2s. And then if you get Adeline on 3, oof, you're making so many tokens because you're already attacking with 2. And against a control deck, if you're taxing that control deck, they're not going to be able to respond. So I think this, like you said, really just kind of comes down to which person draws their early game versus their late game first to figure out who's going to have the answers versus the threats.
Yes. We'll see our players heading into game number 2 here and a quick 2-land keep on the side of Coral. We'll see Emily also keeping 7. Any thoughts on this opener? Oh,
Yep, naming humans. Oh, we've
yeah,
got
just
some
got better.
Thalia. We got that Thalia already. That
Never
was a
didn't have it.
great draw. Yeah, I was gonna say, Dinnick is okay on 2, and I mean, when you've got nothing else, might as well get a 2 drop out, but when you draw Thalia, you play Thalia on 2.
Yeah, and we'll see Thalia ready to get it into the red zone as Emily playing an Iganjo and as a land on turn number 3 has two in the list, but I feel like Coral's got to take a quick, like, deep breath and be like, oh, that's one of like the removal spells that gets around my Thalia attacks here, so it's got to feel pretty good if you're on the side of Coral.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Emily's struggling with their mana. And then you're having the taxes on top of that. That's really hard to overcome.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of taxes, Anointed Peacekeeper, going to do that too. Make Disappear, costing 3 mana, going to take care of that. Going to play a Boseiju on the side of Coral and pass the turn. But again, no fourth land drop from the side of Emily as Coral draws their fifth land. And gonna get in for 4 once again. So Emily down to 10, Coral up to 24. What does Emily need to do to get back in this game?
Removal, any kind of removal piece, but if Coral just continues to play her pieces out, you have to gauge whether or not you can play removal in terms of counter spells versus actually bouncing or removing things on board. Because when you're stuck at 3 mana, that's difficult. And then if a worse threat comes out, what do you do? So this is a really rough spot for Emily to be in.
No, it certainly is stuck between a rock and a hard place here. King Darian also pumping up the team on the side of Coral, needing to cast a 3 mana impulse, maybe hoping to make that fourth land drop and then hoping to be able to do something to get back in this game. We see Plaza of Heroes coming down. Now, Plaza also protects legendary creatures if need be, but Elspeth Resplendent is almost going to spell the end here.
Yeah, I think they're gonna go down. They're gonna take Emily down to 1 life.
Yes, it looks
I'm
like,
picking whichever.
right? Close your eyes and click. So,
I already have a first strike, a lifelink. Now we need a vigilance.
yes. So, all those creatures getting in. Emily at 1 and depopulate. Going to allow um Coral to draw a card because not really having much of a choice there. But
That was great for Emily, getting to just clear that board.
mm,
Um, now we this is hard though. Emily is on 1,
yes.
and
Oh,
this Elspeth is getting that Thalia with taxes with a shield.
yeah, we'll see. Thalia came down. Thalia's back on the battlefield. Not gone for long. And it looks like going to play Denic Pious Apparition. So a flyer and a first striker with a shield counter on it. That's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, if Emily didn't get another depopulate, I didn't I'm yeah.
This does not look good. Elspeth going to put a +1/+1 counter on Thalia. Looks like going to give it a vigilance counter as well. Thinking about attacks here, saying, what can I be punished for? How can I lose this game at this point? But just going to swing in, get into the red zone. Wandering Emperor comes down. So well played on Coral for spreading out their counters.
Yeah, when you have 2 lethal threats, Emperor will take care of 1, but can't take care of both.
Yes. So unfortunately for Emily, getting stuck on lands doesn't feel so great, especially against Athalia. But a big congrats to Coral. A really convincing match there on the side of 5-color Jodah humans. Just a really you think I was, thinking about the heavier part of the deck, the Jodas and the Halana and Elenas and things. We didn't even see Jodah. We didn't need Jodah. It
Yeah,
was
who
the four,
Jodah
right?
who?
Right? There's the Thalia's taking off. Adeline looked great. These slim, low to the ground cards. Denick looked really good. It just got the job done very quickly. So good games to both of our competitors there. But Jodah Human's going to take that one down over Azorious, controlled 2 games to none in very convincing fashion. So what a matchup.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I enjoyed that a lot. Thalia was definitely MVP of that match.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Thalia usually is against blue-white control decks. So that's
True.
like and with that, we're heading on to our last match of the evening. We're gonna pop on over to division number 15, taking a look at Rebecca Black here on an Esper mid-range deck. Again, one of the more popular archetypes in this week with the brand new The Brothers War coming out. But Rebecca also saying that they may have forgotten to submit a new deck anyway. But Esper's still good as anything. Like, mess with a Rafine Scheming Seer and watch what happens. This is a tough deck to tangle with. Do you have anything here? Any notes on anything that stands out to you as far as Esper midrange? Or it kind of looks like a stock list to me.
Yeah, this looks pretty close to what I've been seeing on some of the meta Esper decks. I do like the farewells and depopulates in the sideboard, the cut downs over there. I like that they're playing Void Rend in the main deck, not being able to be countered. That is really strong. But yeah, this is looking pretty standard. Dinix, Tenacious Underdogs, Rafine. So yeah, this should be pretty good. It's
Right,
very
and I'm
good.
from the school of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The
Yeah,
deck
it's
seems
very
great.
good. It should stay
You,
good.
right, and you feel like you'd be going into the new, trying out the new cards and stuff. You don't know exactly how they are. Nobody ever really dives in and feels like I'm playing 4 of this new card and it's going to be great. You usually start with like 2 because you're not sure. Like when Shielder first came out, people were putting like 1 or 2 in their deck, and now people are like, yeah, I'm playing 3 or 4, and I'm
All
not
4,
apologizing for it.
slammed.
I don't care if it's legendary. You know, so.
I mean, when it's Shelly, you know that that's gonna be a prime removal piece, and so if you have another one, it's only gonna be get better.
Right. Yes, and something that I have noticed is that nobody wants to side with any of the brothers in this war. So people are like being like, "Can I join Kayla? Is Loran an option or Team Squee from earlier?" People are like, "Aren't they both just like they're both little brats that need to be put in timeout?" So
Yeah,
that's kind of
red flag central.
okay. Well, I have to ask you then. Are you Team Urza or Team Mishra if you had to pick?
Oh, definitely Mishra. I mean, it's like
Really?
I'm basically my namesake. He just wants to
That's true.
bring the trouble, bring the disaster. I mean, that just sounds like chaos and fun.
I mean, speaking of chaos and fun, see, I'm a Tron player, so I'm all about Urza. So I,
Okay.
I I didn't even know like who Urza was when I started playing Tron. I'm just like, this is great. I'm like, oh, Urza's like a person in like MTG lore. So, but I so
Yeah, for me, it was like, "Oh, that's my bubble. That's mine. Like, these are mine." There's only an extra R in there, don't mind that.
yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. So let's take a look at our final deck of the evening in the hands of Michelle, an archetype that you were saying that you were expecting to see more of this week. We have the pleasure of watching on camera right now Azorious Aggro. So give me your thoughts on this deck.
Yes, I'm so excited to see the Azorius aggro deck. I mean, you have your Thalia for taxes, of course, but oh, the god Dinnick, is that I should have had this pulled up higher. The Brutal Cathar for your removal pieces, your I think it's what is it? The Skylight Captain, the one that if you have 5 soldiers gives them all flying and a pump. That's just so nasty. This is if this can get going and you can get all your humans out and get them aggroed out, you're going to be unstoppable. It's going to take a board wipe to handle this. So I'm excited to see this game play out. Oh shoot. I wasn't sure if it was me or not. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no, nope, nope. Technical difficulties over here. So Harbin Vanguard Aviator was the card I was talking about. Sorry. It's a two drop. It's a 3/2 for 2 with flying, which is just the bottom line stats are great. And then it says whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/+1 and get flying until end of turn. It doesn't say that Harbin has to attack. So like you get this value, you can just attack with your throwaway soldier tokens, pump the team, flying, get across for some crazy damage. Even if they're 1/1s, now they're 2/2s, and you're attacking for 10, instead of 5. And it pumps everything. So it seems pretty great. And it also says creatures you control. So that will pump up Harbin besides. So
Yeah, I've
even
I've
if it's staying
seen
home.
I've seen Harbin and some soldier decks in limited decks, and it's hilarious when you have a defender that gets a +1/+1 in flying because it doesn't say that, yeah, it's just any creature. So you can have your defenders fly. You can, make anything fly.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So I'm very excited to see this one in action. So we'll be watching Azorious Aggro in the hands of Michelle against Rebecca Black and her Esper mid-range deck. We'll be watching from the side of Rebecca and the Esper mid-range deck. On the top, we have Michelle and Azorious Aggro. Let's take a look here. What are your thoughts heading in? Where are you putting the advantage? The Esper mid-range deck or our new breakout Azorius Aggro Soldiers deck?
Oh, sadly, I'm gonna probably have to say Esper. There's the removal pieces. There's, Rafine just gets big. So I think I'm gonna go with Esper, but I'm really rooting for soldiers.
We'll take a look as both players are able to keep their 7 a tap land on the side of Rebecca and a pass, and looks like going to just play out recruitment officer, just starting getting on the battlefield right away on the side of Michelle, and a second Rafine is the draw on the side of Rebecca. And there's some options here too, because Rebecca can play out that tap land and just say go and be ready to cast a Rafine on 3, or it can play the wastes and have a choice between Denic holding up a removal spell in Infernal Grasp or a counter spell in Make Disappear. Any thoughts on what to do?
Yeah, that's a difficult position to be in. It looks like Rebecca is gonna go with Dinnick. I think that's the right move is to just get something out to block because I think some of the stronger pieces are going to come on, potentially turn 3. Like we already see that siege veteran that gives a 1/1 counter. That's gonna be rough. So holding up that make disappear and the infernal grasp for turn, potentially 4, especially now that she got her 4th land. I think that's a smarter choice and just having something out there to block. It's aggro. Having a 2/3 lifelink blocker seems pretty good.
Yeah, and we see so going to keep the Denic home though, even though playing out the Rafine, even with that connive trigger, not wanting to throw Denic to the wolves against the recruitment officer and the veteran. So I'm gonna stay home, and we see Michelle's just got a handful of gas. It's, we see
Yeah.
1 drops, 3 drops, all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's just 2 ones and 3s. Not well, wait a second. I thought that was a 3-drop. It only tapped 2 mana.
Oh, Valiant! She played out a Valiant veteran, which pumps your other soldiers. They all get +1/+1, and it has an ability on it. 3 white. If you exile Valiant veteran from your graveyard, you put a +1/+1 counter on each soldier you control. So even after it's dead, it's doing some work.
Yeah.
So that's a big, battlefield on the side of Michelle here.
Yeah, this aggro is coming out pretty aggro. And it's really nice that that Valiant veteran is not legendary, so you can just keep stacking them.
Yes, and we see Rebecca already at 13 because those pain lands are doing some of the work for Michelle as well as we see had to ping twice for Rafine and once for Denic. So it's haven't taken a bolt off of her own lands. Rebecca, sitting at 13 life. And an Iganjo is the draw on the side of Michelle here too. So that could make blocks or attacks interesting from the side of Rebecca.
Yeah, because it looks like Rebecca is holding up that Infernal Grasp to potentially take out one of the Valiant veterans and get a good block in. Um, but I guess we'll see if they're gonna end up playing Infernal Grasp or Make Disappear.
Yeah, we'll see because Michelle's getting in the red zone as Leroy Jenkins just send
Mhm.
it all. We see those recruitment officers are 4 3s, and each of the veterans are 3 3s. So this is a very healthy attack for more than lethal. So
Yeah.
Rebecca's definitely gonna have to do something here. It's a question of what. It looks like Denick will jump in front of something. Looks like it'll be one of the veterans and Rafine in front of one of the recruitment officers.
Yeah, and I think what I'm gonna imagine is Rebecca's going to take out the siege veteran, lower their power and toughness, and then there'll be more trades However, that Aganjo can still take out that Rafine.
Yes. And it looks like that's what Michelle is considering doing in response to this infernal grasp. And taking a minute to make sure, pay for it
Oh,
correctly. Oh, going to take care
no,
of
I'm
the
gonna go
Denic
for the Finnick
instead.
because the Rafine does have that ward trigger, and even Channel does have to pay for ward.
And Rafine does not kill the thing that it was blocking anyway. So saying, you know what, I want to save my other veteran, and I'm just going to kill the thing, the Denic that was blocking it. So that, and taking a look here at the Denic in the graveyard as well, as it would be a pious apparition if it were to come back to the battlefield. So it does a little bit different. It doesn't stop people from targeting cards in graveyards, and it is a 3/2 flyer rather than a 2/3 lifelinker.
Yeah, at this point, I think Rebecca's just trying to get some blockers out there, something that will actually trade. Because they had the option of playing the wedding announcement and get the 1/1s, but those aren't going to trade. You're just going to be chumping just to stay alive. Losing the Dinnick is a little rough because having the front side and getting that lifelink keeps you in the game longer. But at a certain point, you just have to trade things off and take them where you can get them, right?
Yeah, and it looks like that's what Rebecca's going to do, looking to trade off the Denic once again with a recruitment officer that was pumped up by Siege Veteran. So Siege Veteran going to make a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token from the recruitment officer dying there. Otawara coming down as a land. We see AO here, and that will be the play. A nice bodied 5/4 blocker. But besides getting big, Michelle is still going wide as well. And Rebecca is at a precarious 8 life. So any way to be able to pump things up here might spell trouble for Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the owl having vigilance is really nice, being able to attack and defend. But at the same time, you with that board getting wide, they're going to have to defend, and they're going to have to defend some of the larger creatures. So that's going to be either losing owl or losing Rafine. Which, if the Rafine gets lost, there's another one in hand. But you really don't want to lose the owl.
Yes, and we see Siege Veteran going to pump up the other recruitment officer. So that has 5 power now as well, having played the Sky Strike officer pre-combat. So able to tap some soldiers to draw some cards here, tapping 3 untapped soldiers to draw a card with that. And it's a 2/3 flyer normally. Right now it's a 3/4 because of the pumps. Oh my goodness. Rebecca just going to take that 4 from the recruitment officer.
That was a very interesting move. I think I may have just traded out the Rafine. I get then again with the mana, they are only at 5, so it might be a little bit harder. So I can understand not doing that. I'm honestly surprised to see that Michelle is only at 3.
Yes. We'll see Rebecca playing Wedding Announcement and Denick here, maybe hoping to gain some life for any alpha strike that Michelle would want to do, being able to make more blockers. But yeah, that AO would hopefully replace itself if it were to die. You put some good stuff on the battlefield to replace it. We'll see Sky Strike Officer tapping down and drawing a card. And oh goodness, there's the card that you had mentioned earlier in
Yes.
Harbin.
And if I count correctly, there are 5 on board.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think this might be game 1.
Yes, and we'll see because Michelle's getting in, and that Sky Strike
Yep.
is going to give every. Oh my gosh, it makes another token, and everything's got flying. And yeah,
Yeah.
Rebecca's gonna say, just Joe, just let it come. That's fine.
Yep.
So
Bring
that's
the
all
pain.
right. Yep. Just kind of put your hands down and just be like, this is how it's gonna be. But so game one will go to our Azorious aggro player, Michelle. That was definitely a good little game there. Game
Yeah, that
number
was a
one.
good showing for the aggro deck. So I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm very happy for them.
Yes. And now we move to sideboards, and Rebecca very quickly bringing in those farewells and depopulates. So wanting to have some board wipes, and I'd imagine those being pretty important in this matchup.
Absolutely. I think in this case, the depopulate is probably a little bit better just because it's less mana. And that aggro deck sure was aggressive. It came out fast and hitting. So the farewells will still be useful. A board wipe is a board wipe. The depopulates will just be a little bit more useful.
Yeah, and taking a look once again, maybe, wanted to shave some cards here or there, thinking about the uh counter magic and things like that, and anointed peacekeepers, being able to tax a 2 drop or a 1 drop doesn't feel so great. Maybe nothing that interesting in Michelle's deck to tax. Just hoping to keep Michelle from going too wide, too big, too quickly here again in game number 2. So we'll see what Michelle has going on in her sideboard here. Taking a little look, anything that stands out to you? Valorous stances, destroy evil.
Um, those valorous stances and destroy evils are really only going to hit the larger creatures, and I just I think we're going too fast that we're not even going to get to those larger creatures. So those might not even be worth sideboarding in. The stance, I believe, also takes out an enchantment, so that might be good for the wedding announcements. But then again, the wedding announcements 3 mana, and you have to wait on it. So I can see not even bringing it in.
Yeah, we'll see. Brutal Cathars looking like maybe shaving those. Thinking about perhaps a spell pierce or protect the negotiators. Anointed Peacekeeper is going to come in to tax some of those bigger threats, perhaps instead of just removing them entirely. Just slow down so that she can do what she did in game number 1 and just take over and make a large board presence and hope that Rebecca cannot handle it. So
Yeah,
we'll
if there's
see.
any way to tax those board wipes, you got to go for it.
That is for sure. We see a Guardian of New Benalia coming on in. Pretty good against the singular removal spells and uh, some of the board wipes. Unfortunately or fortunately, Farewell does exile, so becoming
Mhm.
indestructible doesn't help there.
True. The valorous stance does come in. Those wedding announcements, just getting those 1/1 having chumpers until you can get to some of your larger stuff, or having that to take out the larger stuff is going to be a nice versatile card. So that is a good move to bring it in. If you think the game might go longer.
So we see a keep here from both sides. 3 lands, double Denic, a destroy evil, and a farewell on the side of Rebecca. We see 2 lands and I guess 5 spells on the side of Michelle after that first draw. And loving that deserted the beachhead. That land has made waves.
I love that.
Yes.
Oh, for a for a more control type deck, that Rebecca's deck is actually a pretty like early curve, 2 Denics.
Yes. And we'll see recruitment officer gonna get in and happily trade with that Denic, saying, I need to keep you off of this, don't clog up my battlefield here.
Yeah, and I mean that's fine because there's always second Denic.
Yes. And we'll see Anointed Peacekeeper on the side of Michelle. Gonna take a little peek here at Rebecca's hand, revealing a Shieldred, a Void Rend, a Farewell, and Destroy Evil.
This information is very important for Michelle right now because just seeing that, Rebecca doesn't just have a bunch of, lands in hand, and seeing that there's m- a board wipe, a removal spell that can't be countered, and then the destroy evil, the dual removal for enchantments and larger creatures. Like just having this information is so important right now. Also, the Shelly, like
Yes.
that is a strong creature. So like this is going to be vital for how Michelle is going to go about playing the rest of this game. Is just knowing this information right here.
Yeah, and Shieldred, besides being a 4/5 blocker, even if Michelle was able to outgrow that, it still has Death Touch. So
Yeah.
it blocks anything and everything you throw in its way. But then, yeah, like you said, staring down these sweepers and things like that, it's just definitely a decision to be made here
Yeah, because at a
on the
certain
side of
point, do you
Michelle.
just develop your board and then play the Harbin and then fly everything? Or do you try to get aggro and, maybe try to take it out? That's that's a difficult part to play around, especially when you know they have a Void Rend that can just take out Harbin in a second.
One of the things that may be saving Michelle here is there is no fourth land on the side of Rebecca. Rebecca did just draw an Infernal Grasp, which is great and can take care of the Anointed Peacekeeper, but so could the Void Rend. But not going to be able to deploy any threats or work towards those bigger board wipes either.
Yeah. If I'm in Rebecca's shoes right now, I'm keeping that Infernal Grass a secret. I'm going to use the Void Rend just because it's already known information. So, might as well use the 3 mana, take it out, have that Infernal Grass for later.
Looks like Denick not wanting to get into the red zone, though. So Rebecca going to stay at 21 and Michelle staying at 20 life. A second Harbin. Unlike those veterans, Harbin is legendary. So perhaps not as good as the second, when you have 2 copies sitting in your hand. It's nice to have a backup, but if you don't have one on the battlefield, you usually don't want to have one in your hand as well. Going to click through, and Michelle, looking at it has the 3 drop again, the Sky Strike Officer, but deciding to just pass the turn. So holding up the Resolute Reinforcements.
Mhm. Yeah, that is going to get flashed out.
We'll see if Rebecca has a response here. Going to let that happen, and those 1/1s immediately to become 2/2s because of the veteran pumping it, but that veteran is not long for this world. Going to cut down the veteran where they are standing, and it will be back to Michelle, who draws a Denick of her own here.
It's the mirror match that I didn't know we were expecting.
Yes, and we'll see Sky Strike Officer hitting the battlefield. That is able to draw a card by tapping 3 untapped soldiers. We'll do that right away. Maybe trying to make a land drop here, but just drawing a Thalia.
Yeah, the Thalia is going to be pretty good against that Farewell and pretty much against a majority of Rebecca's hand. But unfortunately, Rebecca is drawing those lands where Michelle is not.
Yes. Denick feeling good enough to get in here. So Michelle dropping down to 18. Rebecca up to 23. Shieldry going to trigger, but
Oh,
Valorous Stance was the draw here. So unfortunately, no stop for Michelle to take care of the Shieldred. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, no, Valorous Stance is
yeah, it's a
innocent.
toughness 4 or greater. Yeah,
Yep.
so
So unfortunately for Michelle, going to take 2 there off of the Shieldred. But a choice here to whether to get into the red zone with these soldiers, which is what looks like it's going to happen. That will trigger this the Sky Strike Officer making a 1/1 soldier and bringing Rebecca down to 19. And another Infernal Grasp was the draw.
yeah, I do think swinging out was the move there because, you're going to be pushing damage. Since that Dinnick was tapped, they're not getting life. And then you get that 1/1 if they do decide to attack with Dinnick, but you're pushing more damage than they're gaining back. So at a certain point, it's better to just have Dinnick back and blocking.
For sure. We'll see Denick getting in and saying, you know what? I'm going to race you here. Michelle's going down to 14. Rebecca gained the 2 life off of Denick, so up to 19. A 4th land on the side of Michelle. A big draw here, being able to double spell. How big is that?
That is huge. Like right now, we're basically racing. And so whoever can get the most threats out and push the most damage is huge right now. Granted, 2 more lands and that Farewell is online, so that definitely puts the favor back in Rebecca's court. But if Michelle can just keep pushing, then that might change it up.
We see Thalia hitting the battlefields here on the side of Michelle, and another Denick, the draw on the side of Rebecca. I heard you like Denick. You got the graveyard, the battlefield, and the hand. It's like Hedron Archive. You just need one in exile and you win, right? So, so Denick into the red zone, saying, "I'm not afraid. I'm getting in here." in for two. Michelle going down to 12. Rebecca up to 18. Now, there are four cards in Michelle's hand and two mana open. So Michelle is just ready to fire off the second copy of Resolute Reinforcements. Denic Pious Apparition is going to be the play on Rebecca's side. So
Yeah, though
interesting.
those resolute reinforcements coming in, and I can only imagine that it might be time for Harbin.
Yeah, and it looks like Michelle agrees. Protect the Negotiators was the draw there, but still going to go for the more aggressive strategy, getting in. And I mean, this 18 life is about to go down real quick. Like, Thalia still has first strike, so can't even block the biggest thing. Gonna need to trade here with one of these tutus. This is a huge attack from the side of Michelle.
Yeah, this is not favorable for Rebecca. Michelle is definitely kind of taking over control and having that Thalia. Like Michelle knew Farewell was in hand. Michelle knows about the destroy evil, and really, it's a matter of time on how fast can I race before Rebecca gets their mana. How can I
Right.
tax her?
And Rebecca doesn't know there is a second copy of Harbin in Michelle's hands. So even like being able to take care of it won't take care of it for too long. Denick on the battlefield can gain a little bit of life, but never got close enough to that farewell, especially with the Thalia tax on it. And lest we forget, there is a Valiant Veteran in the graveyard on the side of Michelle, which if Michelle draws a land, you pay 5 mana, it's 3 double and 2 white to exile it. You put a +1/+1 counter on each soldier. So that would pump the team itself.
Yeah, Rebecca does take out that Harbin, trying to, do what she can, but little does she know, second Harbin's about to make his entry.
Yes, a second Harbin in hand. And even if Rebecca had waited, the Protect the Negotiators sitting in the hand of Michelle as well. We'll see Harbin coming on down. And that should do it. So we're going to see. I was a commanding 2-game series going to Azorious Aggro. Our Azorious Soldiers player, Michelle, going to take that down 2-0 over Rebecca on Esper Midrange. And what a powerful performance from Soldiers. No, now I'm with you, and I'm like, why weren't more people playing this deck?
Yeah, I was talking to a pal of mine that's competing this season, and they were wanting to play was Azorius Soldiers. They're like, "It's gonna be so good. I wanna play Soldiers, but I think my opponent might be on Soldiers, and I don't wanna do the mirror match." So,
Well, they were right, both of them, if they played it. So
I'll have to check. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
that was impressive. But what an excellent night. It was such a mix of seeing the obviously older, powerful decks like Orzhov Clerics that was just like no new cards, no new cards. And then you have, a Jodah Humans deck, which was sort of like mostly the same old deck, but had a few good, spicy new additions. We saw like some Saheeli in some of our Grixis decks, and then we saw a brand new archetype in Azorius Soldiers. So what a fun night! It was a roller coaster with definitely a good variety of decks.
Yeah, I know there weren't a lot of new cards from Bro introduced into these into these decks. Some of them stayed the same, but it was just exciting seeing which ones were picked and chosen. Personally, I was like, there's going to be so many more artifact creatures coming into these decks, and I was like, maybe not. Never mind. There's not any.
Well, standard, I will say, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. It seems like it's in a very healthy spot right now. There are, standard is very small at the moment as far as sets go, but it seems like it's in a healthy, great place. And I'm looking forward to seeing it develop and some of the great new brews and things that we've had in the VML. One of the greatest things is that our competitors submit a new deck every week. So there is a lot of room to kind of change things up and try things out. And I see a lot of innovation and creativity in a lot of these decks, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm always rooting for the ones that are like a little bit less known, or they're not quite the meta, a little bit off meta, if that's a thing. I
No,
always enjoy
for
those.
sure.
You never know what to expect. The meta decks prep for other meta decks. When you have something new thrown into the mix, it's like, ooh, how do you handle this? And it's just always exciting to see those play out.
It sure is. And with 128 players in our biggest ever season, we see a lot of variety amongst decks. Again, we are in week number 4 of our 7-week round robin, where after that we'll be cutting to our top 32. And very excited this year to be sending players not only to regional championships, but also to the Pro Tour. We have a big VML championships at the end of this year. It's a 24-player invite-only event. We'll be working on that for our next few seasons because we do have 2 more seasons that have been announced coming up, seasons 9 and 10 planned for the spring and summer of 2023. And the summer and fall will be when we have the VML championships. There's so many exciting things. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we're still in season 8 right now. But this definitely was a big undertaking for our production team and our leadership team. So a big thank you to all of them. And of course, a big thank you to Wizards for making this season possible. The VML could not be without Wizards support. So thank you very much. And to our friends at Good Luck High Five, if you have not checked out the podcast with Maria and Meg, it's fantastic. You should listen to them. Make sure you check out Good Luck High Five podcast. A big thanks again to our admin team. A big thanks to you, Misha, for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I had a wonderful time, and I'm excited to do it again soon.
Yes, a thank you to our players for being so amazing and picking out such fun decks for us to cover. Our big thanks to our viewers and our supporters at home. Again, we could not do this without you. And the biggest thanks on the planet, I guess, Thanksgiving was yesterday, but I'm very thankful for our producer, Phoebe, who is the most incredible person that I could ask to work with a week in and week out. She just grinds so hard. I absolutely adore her. Hardest working producer in the biz, bar none. She's phenomenal, and I don't know where the VML would be without her. So a huge thanks to Phoebe. Is there anybody you would like to thank since it is Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving break? I guess. Yeah.
Obviously,
Yesterday.
Phoebe, because Phoebe
Oh,
makes everything run, and just our fellow casters. I had such an amazing time getting to know everybody. We did some training, and it was lovely, absolutely lovely.
it definitely was. I think lovely is a good word for it. And just as lovely will be on next week. So week number 5, be here. Make sure you're following us, twitch.tv/VMLMTG, and follow us on Twitter, as long as that still exists. We are also VMLMTG. Check us out. You can come join our Discord. It's the best community on Discord, not close. So we're great. You're great. Everything is great. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you all next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here, twitch.tv/VMLMTG for week 5 action.